everybody, and welcome to the Jason Jones Show. I am your host, Jason Jones, broadcasting from our new office. We just moved in, so ignore everything you see over my shoulders, and the quality isn't going to be the best. Our studio will be ready in 2 weeks when we're going to be doing regular shows with video. We'll have lighting, so I look pretty as can be, not kind of creepy like I suspect I look right now. But we want to interview this young gentleman from the agriculture industry in California named Leo Zacky. He's from the Zacky family. They have been a fixture in the agriculture industry in the United States and especially in California. This is a man that has a vision for California. I was so impressed with him that I asked him to come on the Jason Jones Show, even though our studio is yet to be complete, our new studio, and our new office is also still under construction. Like, we didn't paint that. That's going to be gone. But this office is great. I can't wait to show it to you. But as I said at the end of the show, I'm going to tell you now, been on the road for the past 3 weeks, was shooting a film in New York City. Also had the opportunity to go to Pennsylvania, where I met with Governor Shapiro and his wonderful wife. And I briefed the governor and the first lady on the hunger and famine situation on the ground in Gaza. And then I had the privilege of meeting with conservative leaders from around the country and sharing with them the latest on the plight of civilians in Gaza, and especially the small and embattled Christian community. VPP is delivering 110,000 liters of water into Gaza this month, along with our regular food deliveries. Also, a big thing we just did is in Nigeria this month, we funded and provided security for the bishops' conference. So all the bishops in Nigeria came together. It was very important to provide security for them. We're already providing security for Catholic schools, for hospitals and parishes, and also the last Jewish community in Nigeria we're also providing security and support to. But it was important to make sure the bishops were secure, because 9 out of 10 Christians in the world martyred this year will be martyred in Nigeria. And a lot of people don't know that our work in Africa, as a budget-wise, is probably the largest budget item of our work. But influence operations and our work in the media obviously is really more focused on these crisis points in Gaza, and the crisis point in Gaza. But that's why there haven't been any shows. For that, I apologize. You're like, this guy apologizes every show. It's like it beats a dead horse. If you're going to say sorry, amend yourself. I know. I am. I promise I will. But follow us. Go to www.vulnerablepeopleproject.com, and then you can see the really exciting work that we do. Much more exciting than this show, I can tell you, the work of the Vulnerable People Project. So go to vulnerablepeopleproject.com. I mean, not with Leo. Leo is very exciting. I mean, my contribution to this show is much less exciting than the work of the Vulnerable People Project. And you won't even begin to understand that until you go to vulnerablepeopleproject.com. Give your very best gift, and then you'll get signed up for our newsletter. And your best gift could be $2, whatever. Give your gift and be a part of the team. Put your oar in the water. Row with us as we serve the most vulnerable people in the world when the world is left. All right. Now on with my interview with the really interesting and great Leo Zacky on his plan for California. It is the Jason Jones Show, coming to you from our unfinished office. Aloha. Aloha, Leo Zacky. Welcome to the Jason Jones Show.
Aloha, my brother.
It's good to see you. We met last week in Boston, and you shared with me something that I thought was outlandish. You're running. You picked a hard job for yourself. You're running for governor of California, and I live in Texas. I fled Hawaii, but most of my neighbors fled California. But you're not leaving. You're not fleeing. You're standing your ground, and you're staying to fight. So, Leo Zacky, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, look, you came from a great place, Hawaii, and you're in a great place, Texas. But I think California is pretty awesome myself, and I want to make this place better. I mean, this is home. I mean, my family got every opportunity here to become successful, and the legislature changed the business practices got just destroyed with overregulation and just high taxes and everything ballooning, minimum wage and utility costs. So we couldn't be competitive when we're playing in a global market here. So we had to shut down after 90 years of being in business.
That's unbelievable. When I look at California and Hawaii, they're similar in many ways actually, but you know,
Extremely, controlled by Democrats.
yeah, but they're beautiful places that should be ridiculously wealthy. The standard of living should be high. The cost of living should be low. But because of government mismanagement and one party control, Hawaii, it's the crossroads of the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to agreements and trade in the early 90s, devastated our agriculture industry, put our whole state out to pasture. In California, you have more languages spoken in your political community than any political community in the world. You are natural resources rich, and
Very much so.
and there's a lot of wealth in California. But unfortunately, for the average guy, for the average family, they're being crushed.
Yeah, that's the reality, is that people just don't have the opportunities to not to create the wealth, let alone keep any money that they earn. I mean, with the way taxes are in California, think about it. You spend 35% of your income goes to the federal government, and then 14.9 of it, which is basically 15%, goes to the state government. So before you even get your hands on it, you've lost half your money. I mean, for every hour you work, they take a half hour. So if you work a 40-hour work week, the government takes 20 of those hours, and they weren't there helping you do the job. And it's just mismanaged. I mean, then what do you get in return for it? Our roads here are broken. We have the most homeless in the entire country. We're paying $6 a gallon for gas, and it's expected to go up higher. Our crime is through the roof. Our education's in the toilet. I mean, what are people actually getting in California?
Well, brother, let me say this. I want to ask you a question. That's a good question. I don't know what they're getting. I think a lot of people are thinking nothing and they're fleeing to Texas. But I want to ask you this question. As a tourist, as somebody, or I go for business to California all of the time. I love San Diego, I love San Francisco, and I love Los Angeles. And a lot of people right now are flinching when I say this, but these are wonderful cities. But when I go there now, it's utterly depressing. I explain it like this. Have you ever gone, well, you live where you were raised. I left Chicago when I was 17 years old and moved to Hawaii, where I lived for 31 years. Every once in a while, I go back to Chicago and I see an old friend, and things didn't turn out very well. And I remember them at their prime, at their youth, when they were just, beautiful and had hopes and dreams. This is what I feel like when I go to San Diego. It's like my old friend, like just 10 years ago, I was in San Diego and it was beautiful. I was on the main street in the center downtown where a big hotel had just closed. There's a naked woman, extremely obese, smoking crack, naked. Leo.
You can't make it up, though. That's the thing.
It was new. It was new.
It's too crazy, but it's the reality that we're living in.
Yeah.
It's just like, how have we fallen so far, and especially in a place like California? We were literally the shining beacon on the hill for everybody. I mean, I remember growing up, everybody was like, "Oh, you're from California? Oh my God, what's it like? Oh, I want to go there. Oh my God, Los Angeles. Have you met any movie stars and all that stuff?" And now when I tell people, where I'm from, they're like, "Oh." And we've become a laughing stock. I mean, the whole place is a joke. I mean, everything is unbelievably expensive and everything's broken. Like you said, naked cracks, obese, smoking women on the streets. It's not just, women, but it's, you have all these problems, this drug habit, this mental health that's going on, the broken streets, the broken people, the broken lives, but it's all because of the mismanagement of government and the mismanagement of our resources and the abuse of their power, because they don't want to actually do what's right. And look, I was a board member for the California Poultry Federation for a decade. So I'd go to DC and Sacramento, and I'd meet with senators and congressmen and the USDA, FDA, EPA, state reps and senators. And let me tell you, I've been to their offices. I've had dinners with them. These people are stupid, and they don't care about you, and they don't care about your business. They don't care about your family, but they really love being wined and dined. So as the whole world burns down around them, they, for some reason, just keep enriching themselves and somehow perpetually keep getting reelected to office. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the people have been so just beaten down with all the expenses of life that they're struggling so hard just to keep their head above water that they don't have time to think about politics. I mean, if you're juggling two jobs and you got kids and a mortgage and there's all these things going on. How can you focus on what's going on in government? And a lot of people, I think, get lost in the sauce as to why things are as difficult financially for them. And so when you have an education system that's indoctrinating kids where, you're struggling to stay afloat, right? So, they're just basically dumping their kids off at public school and treating it like a daycare. And then the kids come home and they're getting taught a bunch of nonsense in school. And so years and years and years of that happen. And then they go into the real world and they don't have any real skills because they didn't get shop class. They didn't get a real education. Nobody held them accountable. There wasn't standardized testing to keep the teachers in line. And they're released into the world with, a women's studies or degree, like, or gender studies degree, and that's not going to get you a job anywhere important, and no employer is going to be able to hire somebody with those lack of skills.
Leo, I want to go back to two things you said. Number one, you're right. When I was a kid, every city in California was magical. Like the names: Pasadena, Anaheim, Santa Monica, Santa Barbara. Every city and town, to those of us growing up in the Midwest, was magical. And now, because of government mismanagement, and you said it, like, they're not very bright. And someone who's not that sharp but is honest and earnest can be a really good elected official. You don't have to be a genius.
Right.
The problem is they're not bright. They're consumed with avarice. They're slothful. They're prideful. And it's really shocking, I think, when you get involved. And one of the things that I've discovered as I've worked up the ladder, I've worked on political campaigns from the State House to the White House. I've been blessed to have meetings in the Oval Office. You're shocked when you realize it's not the best and the brightest, and it's definitely not the most virtuous people that find themselves in leadership positions in our political communities. And this is why I want to bring why I wanted to have you on my show. With the work that I do, I think you're one of very few politicians I've had on the show. I've had good friends of mine from Hawaii and other places on, but I generally don't have elected officials or people running for office on my show. But the reason something about you struck me, and I want to get to this, I travel around the country, and when I find towns or communities that are vibrant, that are exciting, that are safe, that there's opportunity, it's the people that made money in those communities, the families that built their wealth. They've built businesses. They started small, maybe 3 generations ago, 4 or 5 generations ago. And generation after generation after generation, those families instilled something. And I have to imagine there was a time in our country where there were these stakeholders, these stewards of opportunity for their communities, that those families that had success and were blessed paid back to those partners that helped them succeed. Because when your business succeeds, when Barack Obama, there's always a little bit of truth perverted when the left speaks. When Hillary Clinton says it takes a village to raise your child, yeah, your village raises your child, but you mean the government. You don't mean like aunties, uncles, cousins, neighbors. You mean CPS banging on my door at 4 a.m. No. When Barack Obama told entrepreneurs, you didn't do that on your own. Yeah, no kidding. But guess what? Entrepreneurs are the most grateful people I've ever met. Because
they have the vision and they take the risks too.
They have the vision, they take the risk, they have discipline. And I've never met an entrepreneur who is like, imagines they did it on their own. They did it with family, with friends, with neighbors, with employees. They are grateful to all of those people. So your family and you, to me, represent. Can you tell me how, to me, you're a young man, I have a son your age. Can you tell me how in your family, how it was instilled in you to not, jet set or spend your time surfing in Maui and in the winters and running off to ski and touring Europe? What was it in your family that inculcated in you this responsibility to your community and to the state of California?
Well, My family's always been very good, with supporting charities. It's always about giving back, and that was something I was always taught from a young age. Is that the money you make is it's great, but it's the good that you can turn around and do with it that's the important part. Because I mean, obviously, government is just failing at every step of the way, and so my family has a foundation that we have money set aside that it generates money every year. We use that money to then donate to charities. I mean, we've donated over $1 million to like things like City of Hope. We donate tens of thousands of dollars every year to veterans organizations and homeless organizations and research and arts and stuff like that. So that's what we like to do, is give back to the community when we can. And even in our own company, like, we love to give people a second chance. I mean, in fact, Zacky Farms was the largest second chance employer in the state of California. Where we would, felons and that had been released from prison that had served their time, and we would give them gainful employment. And so, you have to be a steward of your community, because you live in it and interact in it every single day, and you have to be the change that you want to see. Nobody's going to come and save you, you know?
Yeah, and we all can't leave, right? All of California can't leave. And here's the tragedy. So many I see, and I even felt guilty. My wife and I prayed about it and talked long and hard about our leaving Hawaii. And, we still have a place there, and we'll move back when our kids graduate. But it was really a challenge, and I felt a lot of guilt and shame, because I thought, I want to stay here and fight for my state, but at the same time, I run an organization, and I can't fight a two-front war. And it just made sense for us at the time during COVID, when I couldn't travel very easily from Hawaii with all of the restrictions our state had, to move. It was very hard. So I really admire you for sticking it out and for fighting. But okay, we talked about homelessness, which is tragic. We talked about how your cities are just falling into disrepair. Can you talk to us about the water crisis?
Sure. And there's ways to fix the homeless crisis too.
Yeah. Can you tell us what would be your solution to the homeless crisis?
Well, I mean, you first have to identify what the problem is, what the root cause of homelessness is. And the government is saying now it's just, housing first, right? That's the fix. That's not the fix. Okay. You give somebody a house who's got a mental health crisis and a drug habit, you're not helping them. You have to actually give them treatment. So we have to enforce our vagrancy laws to then get these folks off the streets and out from inhabiting public spaces, like camping out in front of, somebody's business. Nobody wants to go shop at a store where there's, homeless stains and filth and stuff there. Nobody wants to go there. People don't want to take their kids to the public parks because they're full of drug addicts shooting up, right? That's not a safe place. So
my business partner, my film producing partner, her son grabbed a needle at the park.
There's a story a couple years ago. A mom took her daughter to go play on the beach in Venice Beach, California, and while she's playing in the ocean, she stepped on a hypodermic needle and has since had to continuously get tested to make sure that she doesn't have HIV or AIDS.
Unbelievable.
I mean, but that's the reality.
Vagrancy laws, just enforcing vagrancy laws, seems to me such a common sense first step.
Right. So that's step one. So then, because it's a violation of the law and they don't have anywhere to go, and I want to have prison reform, because I don't think that you should get, sentenced to jail for being a drug user. I think a drug user should go to rehab. Obviously, like the horrific people, rapists and murderers, yeah, they need to go to prison, no doubt. I mean, throw them under the prison. But folks that are in violation of vagrancy, they need to get back into society. And so we have to cultivate that by giving these people opportunity. And so we're going to have a program, what I call homeless to home. And so we take them in and we figure out what's wrong with them. Do you have a mental health crisis? Do you have a drug habit? And provide treatment. And while they're undergoing treatment, we're going to provide small modular tiny homes for them. I found a company that produces them for $2,000 a unit. I've already struck a deal with them that, when elected, that we can pay them off at $75 a month for 27 months, which will then pay that expense off. And we don't have to build these, very expensive homeless shelters. Right now they're building places that house 250 people at the cost of $80,000 a bed a year. I've got this way more affordable And not only while they're getting, so they'll get housing, so they'll be in an area where they can't leave. You have to complete this program. You have to show that your mental health is under control. You have to show that your drug habit is manageable and under control. And so while they're going through the treatment, they're going to learn a job skill. And the jobs they'll perform will be things like construction or sanitation or agriculture work. And they'll have things like uh, basic firefighting as well. So they'll be doing all these different roles, and so they'll get skills from being able to perform those tasks, but they'll earn a living wage. So they earn minimum wage, and you deduct their housing costs, you deduct their medical costs and their rehab costs and all that, but it doesn't put them into debt. And then the money that is left over, that remainder, goes into an account they can't touch until they complete the program. And so they accumulate wealth that way. So they get a job skill, they get their drug habit under control, they get their self-esteem rebuilt, their mental health under control, they've got money in the bank, they're eligible for government-assisted housing, and anybody who hires them coming out of the program gets a tax incentive for doing so. And so they're going to build things like reservoirs, which are going to help offset the cost. So, you give 10,000 people a shovel, they can dig a pretty big hole pretty quickly. They can also pour concrete, and voila, you've built a reservoir, rinse and repeat. That's going to help with our water situation, and then I'll tell you in the water situation how that helps offset those expenses. Then we have agriculture work. They'll overproduce crops that they won't be able to consume themselves. And I've been in the food industry my whole life. So if you sell it to a store like Erewhon or Whole Foods, right? People who pay top dollar for organic feel-good product, you will achieve that price point. And even if we can't do it like that, you can still sell it for feedlot or export it around the world, and that will still bring in revenue to offset those expenses. Then you've got sanitation, cleaning up our streets and our tourist traps and our highways, beautifying the place, making it more attractive, and obviously better for the environment. And then the wildfire management and basic firefighting, have them do underbrush clearing, work with logging companies, do back burning. And that way we can save billions of dollars on the balance sheet from having to not have to deal with such devastating wildfires every year. So,
Leo, as I'm hearing you talk, and I like the way you're thinking, as I can hear the arguments. First, there's an argument comes from the right, this sort of libertarian bent that we have, that it's not government's role. But here's the reality. That's why I'm a conservative, not a libertarian. This problem is beyond the scope of local municipalities or local businesses. And, downtown areas have become desolate. So
right.
Just increase revenue and taxation when you create vibrant communities again. And just the fact that moms can't go to parks, to me, is utterly a failure of our political community. If there is not anywhere in California, urban California.
Look at MacArthur Park. That's like supposed to be one of the most beautiful. It's like supposed to be almost kind of like our Central Park, right? New York Central Park, MacArthur Park, LA, that's supposed to be like the big, beautiful one. And it's full of homeless and drug addicts, and there's always crime going on there, and it's a disgrace. And that's just
you hit the nail on the head. It's like, look, these are broken people engaged in crime. And one of the problems in California, they're not hardened criminals. Many of them, though, do commit heinous crimes because of mental illness and drugs. So this situation has to be brought under control. One of the problems you have in California is, when I had an office, I used to have a live-work office at Hollywood and Vine. And at the time, my staff and I, once a week, would go and get to know our neighbors without homes. And we would talk to them, take them to get their IDs. If they needed us to get their IDs, we'd go down to Skid Row. We'd bring them gifts and food and da-da-da. One of the things that was shocking is I run an international organization that works in the war zones around the world. I was shocked. Obviously, there are people send the homeless from cities and counties, I believe, send the homeless from like Buffalo and New York and Chicago in the winter to LA. They give them bus tickets or plane tickets even. They do the same thing to Hawaii. But I was shocked at how many international broken homeless people there were. It was really so sad. One day, my daughter, who was very diligent, she would take the bus, put her bicycle on the bus, and go down from where we lived in Glendale to Skid Row almost every day. And she'd work from before sunrise until around noon when she had to go to college. And she said, "Dad, you have to come down here." And I went down to Skid Row. There was a Sudanese woman who just walked the streets, shell-shocked. We got to know her, and we found out that her husband and children were killed in the genocide. And so, California is in many ways shouldering brokenness, not just from across the United States, where so many of your homeless come from, but really from around the world. How would you, I mean, I'm ambushing you with this, but how would you deal with that problem when you have people with really severe PTSD or mental illness that they may not be able to work?
Well, there's always going to be some that will fall through the cracks, and um, I think that we're going to have places for them, but we can also offer as a means for actual people like souls like yourself who actually are selfless in that regard. Maybe you have an ADU on your property and you'd like to take them in as a ward of the state, and the state can pay you for giving them care. I have a friend in Maui actually whose family does that. They take care of wards of the state. I mean, those are opportunities that we can use without having to build facilities. But I mean, if we have more than we can actually get into that program, then we do need to have facilities that can sustain these people. But we can't. We have to find ways to help get them into some sort of functional. They have to be able to be some functional in some capacity. And if they're completely not, that's still fine. We have to have a place for them.
And protect them. You have to imagine a young Sudanese woman
Well, of
who
course, you want them in safe places. You don't want them being taken
the
advantage
streets
of. I
of
mean,
LA.
we've heard all the horror
What
stories.
kind of abuse will she suffer? Well,
Right.
what can happen to her?
Right. Well, look, I mean, the thing is with the homeless to home program, where they're like I was talking about how all these people are going to have mental health crisis and all these things. There's going to be people that are going to give them counseling, and I don't think that we have enough counselors to handle that. But the best part is that we're going to partner with the UC system and other schools for their psych majors and medical students, and have them come in and intern as well, so we can also learn more about these mental illnesses and drug addiction and how we can better treat them. So we're going to see a really big, just boost of it's going to be a lot of research while we're going through this, but we're going to learn so much more from it.
I like that because you're caring for a vulnerable part of the community that's protecting and making livable the entire community by
Mm-hmm.
not seeing them as the homeless problem, but as members of our community that need to be cared
But
for.
that's the thing, Jason. Societies are judged by how the lowest strata of people are treated, and right now we're doing a really bad job. And I know that we as Americans, especially Californians, more than anything, we can do a hell of a lot better than that.
Yeah, and speaking of, can I move to immigration? And then I want to make sure I get to water.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at the immigration crisis, and the left will always say, if we have secure borders or a mandatory verification system, who's going to pick your vegetables? They're literally saying,
But
they're
it's so
literally,
insulting.
they're
It's so
literally
blatantly
saying,
insulting.
we want to exploit migrant workers.
Right.
What I want, I think you want, I hope you want, I want everyone that has a job in this country to have the same architecture of legal protection that you and I have. No one should be working in this country without legal protection. So, they always point to California. Who's going to pick your grapes? Who's going to pick your vegetables? Well, okay, how about somebody that has a visa to work here so they're protected legally from exploitation and they don't have to depend, because I have a real empathy for these migrants. I work at the border, and I understand as a father and a man, I want what's best for my family. And if I had to do what they do to provide for my family and break my back and work hard and underground or above ground, I would prefer to be legal. I'd prefer to have protection. So I have a real heart for them, and I understand. But I can't see, just like this idea that we can't solve the homelessness crisis, this idea that our economy must depend on exploitation of the vulnerable and then exposing all of us to these cartels. And who suffers most from the cartels? The migrant community.
Of course. I mean,
That swims among them.
it's human trafficking. There's drug trafficking. It's all bad people taking advantage of downtrodden people that just are being abused, and that's not right. We have to make sure that people are properly documented coming to work and get the protections, because if you play by the rules, you should be entitled to those protections. But it's bigger than that, Jason, because when people are working and they're getting undocumented and they're getting paid under the table, it's taking advantage of everybody else who's actually trying to earn an honest living. And the problem is that so many farmers and just people in business in general are feel compelled to go and find, people that are undocumented to pay for labor, because they'll accept less than minimum wage, and they'll take that money under the table. And then, so those employers are paying out less in wages. They don't have to pay the insurance on those people, and they get to earn more money. But they're forced in these situations because the state is so unfriendly to business. And that's the biggest issue, is that the businesses are bearing the brunt of this. And, people say, oh, why is my, whatever so expensive? Why is my widget so expensive? Well, your widget's expensive.
Why are eggs or milk so expensive? Why are eggs so expensive?
Right. Well, eggs got expensive because of avian influenza and the way that we're not actually treating the birds. We're just, culling the flocks. That's a whole separate thing. But it's expensive because you have utilities that are so expensive because the mismanagement of resources in the state. You have eggs that are, you have things that are expensive because it's $15 an hour minimum wage, and then those companies have to provide insurance. I mean, look what they're doing for fast food. I mean, fast food minimum wage is now $20 an hour. It's so why do you think you're in and out? I mean, and I'm in and out guy. I've seen my in and out price, my double price has gone through the roof. It's like $20 to go to in and out now. It used to cost me like $11, but that's back when they were paying above minimum wage. They were paying $11 an hour, which was more than minimum wage, and they're taking care of their employees. But they're a good company.
But here's the problem with that. Even we're seeing wages going up, but purchasing power going down. And I guess in real wages have actually been stagnant. And then with inflation, everyone's being crushed, and that's by this government mismanagement.
That's the central bank and the federal government. We need to do away with the central bank, the Fed, that is the Federal Reserve, which is not part of the U.S. government, for the record. That needs to go away.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Can we move to the water? Oh, well, I do want to say this. So you come from the agriculture industry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is it possible for the ag industry to survive in this country without the exploitation of migrant labor?
Yeah, of course it is. Without the exploitation, of course.
Yeah, because we're told by the left it's not, like that we can't have vegetables.
Again, it's such an insulting thing to say too, because anybody who's saying that is coming from a position of like elevated stature, like that labor's beneath me. Let me tell you, okay, I worked on the lines, okay, in slaughterhouses and in packaging facilities and on ranches and in hatcheries, and I've done these less than desirable jobs that the left would label beneath them. Let me tell you, it's an honest day's work. And when I got done at the end of my day after doing sanitation or something like that, and I could look at what I physically did, and I could say, you know what, I did that and I'm proud and I felt good about that. And everybody else who does that job, they feel the same way too, especially when you have a good company that's taking care of the people that are working there. Not all companies are the same. Not all ownership is the same. But let me tell you, there's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good businesses, and they care about their people. And so saying it's...
And there's a pathway up for them. There's a real opportunities for them when they work hard.
Right. Think about like how these people were able to get jobs. I mean, we were hiring people that were ex-cons, people that couldn't get a job anywhere else because nobody wanted to touch them. And we gave them an opportunity to take, because they paid for their crimes, right? They served their time. So they served their time. They're back in the real world. Nobody wants to touch them. We gave them an opportunity of gainful employment so that they could get their lives back. And you know what? The recidivism rate with us from coming to work with us was 0%.
That's one. Well, because they have pride.
That's right.
There's nothing better. Granted, I think I have a pretty cool job, but every day I wake up and I say, I'm so grateful. But guess what? When I was an infantryman, marching around the mountains of the world with a rucksack on my back, I would say, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. When I was stocking paint on the night shift at Home Depot, I thought I was the luckiest man in the world. Probably the coolest job I ever had, Leo Zacky, was I had been working in D.C. I was doing CNN, politically incorrect. It was my late 20s, but I wanted to go back to Hawaii to stop this woman from running for governor or stop her campaign. I failed. She became governor. Decimated the Hawaii Republican Party. But besides the point, I needed a job. So I went to waiting tables, bouncing, and on days I couldn't get shifts, I went to a labor-ready place. It was by the 7-Eleven, and it was me and migrant workers. We would just sit there, right. And I needed money. And I had 2 children, and I needed money. And I would, they'd pick us up. The worst thing I ever did in my life, we went to this old warehouse. We had to rip up carpet and smack down walls. And I looked at these guys and I was just in absolute admiration. And all of them were so grateful for the privilege to have that job because they were making more money then. They could send money home. And so I love these people. And the left, they get they get angry when we say you want to give somebody a job. Like when they hear that, well, we all can't, work at Google. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. But where they come from sounds like a place of elitist entitlement. Whereas
Yeah.
you and all those people I worked side by side with, they were hungry. They were hungry for work. They wanted to go to work. They wanted to be productive. You know. Well, everybody else, all these people, what do they want? They want to be a TikToker. They want to be, they want to be the next
They want a
celebrity.
podcast.
Yeah.
They all can't.
People just give them things for free. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Newsflash: life ain't fair, and the world doesn't work that way. You get in what you get out what you put in. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah, even when you think you don't. Leo, I remember when I was first working on the night shift, kids, and I put on my cherry picker, my forklift, suffer now or suffer forever. And I would take my Japanese language cards I'd be studying for college as I'm, loading and unloading paint. And I remember at one point I'd gotten shingles. I was only 22 years old, but I was going to college full time, working overnight shift full time. And I remember thinking, suffer now or suffer forever, which I had taped to my cherry picker. And it had just been like 3 years of this. And I thought, I guess it's going to be suffer forever. But it's not forever. It's not. 3 years is not forever. 4 years, 5 years is not forever. 6 years is not forever.
It's amazing how fast time moves. Let me tell you. I mean,
yeah, so I really just appreciate you for being, focused on that and your family business. Before we go, though, the whole country knows that you have a water crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's out of control.
I mean, do you have a plan for this? Is this a part of your campaign? Are you talking about it?
It's my number one issue without question. I mean, we are in a perpetual state of artificial drought. And it's because we're dumping water into the sea and we haven't built any water infrastructure.
Didn't they make a movie about this in the 50s? It's called Chinatown.
Which one? Chinatown? Oh, yeah. It was set in the 30s. This has to do with Mulholland and how that's why Mulholland Drive is.
That was diverting water, though, right?
Right. Well, that's how LA County annexed the San Fernando Valley, and it's a whole thing. But
the point is, it's like this has been a problem that's been brewing since the 30s. So now here we are.
Oh yeah, but we haven't built any significant water infrastructure in the state in 50 years, over 50 years. And our population in that time has doubled. We've approved for desalination plants to be built. They keep getting blocked by organizations like the Coastal Commission and CEQA, which are, environmental, nonsense groups that just inhibit the ability to make real progress. And then we have the fact that we're dumping the water into the sea, billions of gallons because the California Sacramento River smelt or whatever. And then worse than that, we're destroying dams on the Klamath River, signed off by Gavin Newsom himself. So you lose hydropower generation and you lose the water storage. So, and I'm telling you, and I'm an avid snowboarder. Okay, you could have gone to Mammoth Mountain this year, and you could have snowboarded into July. And last year, you could have done it into August. All right, so it's not like we're not getting the water; we're just not collecting it and harnessing it. So we have to build reservoirs to collect the rainwater all throughout the state. We have to build dams and reservoirs at the high altitudes to capture the snowpack and be able to generate hydroelectric power. We have to actually go and push through CEQA and the Coastal Commission to build these desalination facilities, but we need to power them with small modular nuclear reactors. And then we also have to dam up our existing concreted rivers in our major metropolitan areas. Like here in Los Angeles, we have the LA River and the Santa Ana River and the Rio Hondo, and they're all concreted up. So just stagger dams throughout that with spillways and build purification plants. And you've already got half of that water storage is already built because it's already concreted up. So simple things like that will allow us to create water abundance. And with that abundance, we can then turn around once we're in that position of abundance. We can then export the water without having to pipe it out of the state because we have the lion's share of the Colorado Rivershed. And so we can auction off our allocated portion monthly or quarterly or biannually or annually, however, based on the amounts that we have in our abundance reserves. And so We share that watershed with Mexico and Arizona and Nevada and Utah and Colorado. So if any of them want some of our water, we just say, go, we're willing to auction off, X billion gallons, highest bidder. And you bring in revenue that way. It's not, again, it's anything
Do you have partners? Are there NGOs and PACs that are lobbying for this? So when you get into the governor's mansion, are you going to have to you're going to have to recruit your team, or are there folks out there fighting for policies like this?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, not with my whole detail. I mean, a lot of people are fighting to push to get the desal online. Um, some people are talking about small modular nuclear reactors, which I'm all for, but that's pretty much where it ends. And so the whole concept is that you have this water abundance, right? And then you now have an additional revenue stream coming into the state. And so the price of water, these utilities, because you're going to be having the combination of a lot of water, which becomes cheaper, and then the power that comes from the hydroelectric and the small modular nuclear reactors, the electricity price comes down. And just so you know, like electricity is very expensive in California. Like for industries like mine, it was 40 cents a kilowatt hour, where in other states like Illinois, for example, is probably like 6 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's very cost prohibitive for businesses on large scale. So, but anyways, everything becomes cheaper, right? Your water bill goes down, your power bill goes down, food prices go cheaper because now the farmers in California that are being restricted on their water, by the way, they're restricted to 1.65 cubic feet per acre. And just to give you guys an understanding of what that resembles, is it takes 2.25 cubic feet per acre to produce citrus, and it takes 4.5 cubic feet per acre to produce almonds. And so farmers are having to rip out their trees because they can't sustain their crops, so they rip out portions of their land to satisfy the needs of the few remaining crops that they have. So then you're having less food production, which means the price of those crops, because there's less, go up. And then they have to resort to things like glyphosate and other herbicides and pesticides to spray their crops with to protect them from any issues, because they only have these little bit of crops left, and if they don't make it to market, they're done. And so everything becomes, it's all connected to water. And so you have cheap water, which means you have cheaper food that we can grow in abundance. And then we can also export, because California is the world leading producer in almonds, avocados, artichokes, and strawberries. And we lead the nation in over 25 different agricultural products, including dairy cattle, beef cattle, walnuts. We have more oranges than Florida, more peaches than Georgia, the most nectarines. We have the wine industry, table grapes, raisins, on and on and on. And so if we have water to produce them in mass, the price per unit comes down, which makes us more competitive, not just on a national market.
When you start listing it, I forget, what number are you if you were a country? You'd be the richest, fifth country in the world.
So depending on which side is skewing the books, the left is going to say that we're doing good and we're in the fourth largest economy. I don't buy that for a second. Others are saying we fall into seventh or eighth, but my whole life we've been the fifth, so I'm just going to go with that because I don't trust.
No. I've heard both. That's why I wanted to ask you.
I think 5 is a safe call, but regardless, that's huge.
That's huge. Like, there's a lot of countries in this planet. A lot of countries that belong to NATO. You're bigger than those countries. That's absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. Well, Leo, I know you got a lot of work to do, so I thank you for taking time. Is there anything you want to share with us before you go?
Well, yeah, but that's just one solution, and the whole thing is that our states exclusively rely on taxation to bring the money in. Well, at least California does. Without taxation, there is no money in the coffers. So by creating, the whole concept of mailbox money, right? Everybody wants to go to have the mailbox money where they get that check in the mail for doing nothing just because they have something. Well, that's what we have here in California, but we have to manage our resources properly. Water is one of them. We can generate power from that water and with the small modular nuclear reactors, which we can also export. Then we have oil. We have so much oil here in California. We should be drilling for it here. We should be extracting it here. We should be refining it here, and we should be using it here. With the oil, unlocking the taps here in California with my plan, we can create over 100,000 jobs and over $80 billion in annual revenue. 80 billion. Our state budget is $220 billion a year. So we're already talking about over a third of our annual budget we can do just by utilizing oil in this state. And then we have the bark beetle that is destroying our hardwood trees. And so we need to have logging industry here to eradicate the bark beetle and glean our forests to prevent the devastating wildfires, coupled with the homeless to home program and having prison inmates doing this kind of labor as well, so that we can glean our forests, manage our wildlands, and mitigate the devastating impacts of wildfires using upgraded infrastructure and tools like firefighting drones to go after remote fires and stop them before they get out of control, so that we can then turn Cal Fire into something that we can export and send outside of state to fight fires elsewhere to bring money in. So it's all, anything you want to do in business, and I have a business background, anything you want to do in a business, it has to have a means of paying for itself. And so that's what I've developed with all the tools that we have here in California. So when you have all this additional money coming in that's not from your hard-earned dollars, all of a sudden those taxes get to come way, way down. I want to do away with property tax altogether. I would love to eliminate income tax, but we have to work towards it. So I will work us towards that, but you have to have a plan forward. I'm the only one in this race that actually has a real business background, experience in agriculture, which is the reason we're the world's fifth largest economy. I want to bring Hollywood back with tax credits. I mean, there are so many.
Yeah, you look, I work in the film business, and we're shooting all over the world. Guess where we're not shooting?
Los Angeles or California.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and it's such a signature piece of who we are as a state. So I've got all these actual plans. Everybody tells you, anybody can get up there and tell you what's wrong with this place. That's great. We all know the problems. How are we going to get out of this mess, Jack? All right. I got those plans. My opponents don't. I'm a fourth generation. They're not. I'm from here. I love this state. I'm not fighting. You can't corrupt me. I know the truth. I'm not going to lie. I got no reason to lie because I've lost everything already. All right. My family business got destroyed. I mean, I'm doing all right. I'm working hard. I'm building myself back up, but I've already lost everything I built my life around. So I've got nothing left to lose but my life and my freedom. Let me tell you, I'm not giving
It sounds like a lot of people in Hawaii and California that had the state policies devastate them.
Right.
And
But look at Hawaii, where you're from. How many people are so indentured to the tourism, right? They work for the big, megacorp, hotelers.
Leo, I'm about to tell you, I'll break it down for you how sad it is. So you have this community, we call them the Kama'ainas. They're like you.
Kama'aina, yeah.
The Kama'ainas there's the Hawaiian community and the Kama'ainas, and they're the same because every family's intermarried. So there's so much intermarriage. But you had these immigrants from Okinawa, from Portugal, Philippines, and they came in and they worked very hard. They built the state. And then by the 80s and 90s, they really were moving into positions of economic independence and leadership in the state and in the economy. And then what happens? International trade agreements destroy us on agriculture. And then what happens next? Massive international corporations come and buy up all of our local hotels and restaurants. And so now, if I'm a young Kama'aina kid and I go work for Marriott or some other hotel company, if I want to get promoted, I have to leave the state.
Yeah,
it's really.
They export, and I've spent a lot of time on the islands, and I love it out there. I understand the difficulties. I mean, the agriculture. I mean, Dole pineapple. Pineapples, folks, they're not grown in Hawaii anymore. They've been exported to
India. I applied for a job at Dole Pineapple when I first got out of the Army in 1992. So I had walked through the pineapple fields as an infantryman. We'd walk from Schofield Barracks to what was called East Range, and we'd see the men. We were out there before the sun rose. The guys were in the field before we were there marching through to go do our field exercises. But there was a real rhythm to, so my first job was at Dole, and I remember being so proud. They didn't hire me, but I just felt proud to be able to go apply there. I went to their headquarters, and they had free juice.
Dole Whip?
Huh?
They
had the Dole Whip, but I got the Dole drink, that I was like, oh, I was so excited about that. But, agriculture gives the backbone to a community because you have a large percentage of your population working the same hours. That's where you're allowed to have festivals and events and family parties. And now everyone in Hawaii is a big economy.
But it's bigger than that because there's so many other industries that are tied to it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not just like field hands, right? They got equipment. Well, that equipment has to get made by somebody else, right? So then
Mhm.
you have to, so there's the equipment companies. Then you have to have maintenance people for those equipments, right? And then you have to move those crops somewhere. That's logistics. That's trucking. Then you have to have people that are providing the fuel for the trucking. You have to have people that are doing the refrigerant and doing all the sanitation things that are involved in that. I mean, it's all compounding. It's not just one thing. There's all these other industries that feed off of it, and especially in agriculture, it's huge.
And there's a wholesomeness to all of these industries and the way they work together and knit together community. The Kama'aina community of Hawaii is an agriculture community. It was knit together through agriculture. It was not knit together through tourism. It was not knit together by the defense industry, although our empires brought a lot of people there like me. But Leo, I like the way you think. I know it's going to be a battle, but you're a young man, and I think you're up for a battle. And where can the folks find out about you?
Well, I mean, the best place to go is my website, and that's leozacky.com right there. And for those viewers, and then otherwise, just go on Instagram and TikTok and X at Leo S. Zacky. And I'd love for you to go and check out stuff there. Really easy. I'm always posting stuff there. Every day we got new content coming out, so check it out. But yeah, and you can always DM me on those things, especially IG. IG is the best one to get a hold of me on. So if you want to ask me a question, go for it.
We won't say his name, but I was introduced to you by one of my clandestine conservative friends in Hollywood, who doesn't want to be outed, but he should. Okay. He outed already. We were joking. What's that?
He's a good man.
He's a good man. I think you and I were joking. Like, everyone knows he's conservative, but he thinks he's keeping it a secret, which I think is pretty cute. So, Leo, thank you so much for being on the show. I got to land this plane and mention our sponsors, so you can jump off. I really liked getting to know you, and I hope I get to spend some more time with you, brother.
Hey, anytime. I'd love to come back. And look, I'm here to help. I don't need the job. California needs me to have this job, and you can't trust anybody else to get it done other than me.
Well, we're going to follow the campaign, and I look forward to having you back on.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
All right, later, brother. All right, guys, I'm going to land this plane. We haven't done a show. How long has it been, Rita? 3 weeks? 3 weeks, because I was shooting a movie in New York City. Can't tell you too much about it. Went to Pennsylvania, and I had a meeting with Governor Shapiro and the First Lady. And I have to tell you, don't smack me, Leo, they're Democrats. I was really impressed. The governor wanted me to brief him on the situation on the ground in Gaza. We've been working in Gaza. We just signed a contract for bringing in 110,000 liters of water a month to the communities with no access to water. And this is all thanks to our donors. We provided the security for the Bishops' Conference in Nigeria because of the heightened violence through our Vulnerable Parish program. We've already been providing security for parishes, Catholic schools, and hospitals across Nigeria and the last synagogue. But we were asked to provide security for the Bishops' Conference, and we did that. We're gearing up for our Coal for Christmas in Afghanistan, where we distribute thousands of tons of coal and food to the widows and orphans of our allies who died fighting shoulder to shoulder with our men and women in uniform. We support their widows and orphans. So we've got a lot going on. We have our movie Hills Like White Elephants, just won the Los Angeles Film Festival's Best Female Director and runner-up for Best Film. And our film I haven't told you much about yet, but I'll be telling you more about it. For obvious reasons, when you see our films, you'll know we're quiet until we're done. Mardasma is a look in it's a narrative short film that is set the day after the election in Afghanistan during the U.S. occupation, and we were just accepted to the prestigious Leeds Film Festival in the UK, which is an important festival en route to an Oscar nomination, and that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that one or both of these films gets nominated for Best Short Film. And this allows us to use the world stage to communicate our message of advocating for and serving the most vulnerable people in the world. So this podcast is brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project, standing in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world when the world is left. So go to our website, vulnerablepeopleproject.com, and give your very best gift. Until next time, which will be sooner rather than later, I promise you, with with the great Leo Zacky right there and his cow right there. It's been the Jason Jones Show. Aloha. Chee-hoo. How?
Ciao, brother.
Right on, brother.
All right. Well, I appreciate this.
I apologize. We're moving offices and studios, so you got not the setup. We're not set up even yet, but we
That's
wanted.
all right. I'm doing this, right here in my dining room, living room area. So.
And I just got back from the boxing gym. I was a little late. I was like,
oh, dude, it's all good, bro. It's all good. It gave me time. I had to go run to the market and grab some crap.
all right, brother. Well, hey, stay in touch. And
hey, you gonna be out in Maui or the islands around Christmas, New Year's?
yeah, we may be shooting a Christmas movie in Hawaii that I wrote. I rewrote The Gift of the Magi, set around 2 homeless Micronesian kids.
Really?
Yeah, and we're looking at shooting between December 27th and January 8th.
Nice. I will be there most likely the 22nd of December to the 12th of January.
Well, bro, let's hang out. You can come on our set.
100%. I'd love to. I'll be on Maui, but dude, Mokulele, Hawaiian Airlines, I go wherever I want.
Love Mokulele, bro. I used to live in Kapolei, and I would go to Mokulele with my backpack, no shoes. I'd walk on the flight. It would land right at my buddy's house, in Maui. And then he'd pick me up. And I was like, there's no TSA in Kapolei at the Barbers Point Airfield. Yeah.
There's no TSA on Mokulele. I mean, it's like, even at OGG, like, it's just like a separate little satellite, tiny terminal. You just walk up to the desk and you're like, oh, you going? All right, here's a ticket.
And those planes can't crash. They can just land a little hard. They're so light. Yeah.
No, I got when Fisher 8 opened up a couple years ago on the Big Island. They were doing these tours, and it was their first evening tour, and I went on it, and the marketing director of Mokulele was on that flight, and I had my DSLR camera, and he's like, if you send me all the photos that you take, call me and I'll get you on a Mokulele flight whenever you want for free.
Oh, right on.
So
that seems like a big deal.
It was a great deal.
I mean, it's not that great of a deal because it's almost free to begin with.
I know, but he's like, anytime you want to go do one of these tours or get a flight anywhere, no problem. So that was pretty. It's just, you never know who you're gonna meet, man. All you need is just need to have your slip.
No, guys like you and I, this is why we're called to do more, is because we live a charmed life. Not everyone gets the blessings that we get, brother. So we got to share them.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it's all about, man. And you respect the Aina, you respect the people around you. That's what it's all about.
I was raised in the 2 best places, the south side of Chicago, and then moved to Hawaii at 17. And they taught me respect.
Yeah. Oh, and when you're there, dude, you got to meet my friends from Chicago I have friends that are from Chicago that live there. And then their other half of their family comes in and they run the fireworks store on Maui, and they have another one on Oahu.
I'd love to meet him, man. They may know because I'm the guy that we were the first aid group in after the fire. We did a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. VPP came in. I worked with my buddy's Hawaiian group, and he called me. I just landed from Ukraine in DC. I was doing some meetings. I got drunk for 48 hours because I was so upset. I was like, you don't need me there. There's nothing I can do. And then I was like, if I'm not going to sleep, I'm just going to fly there. I flew there. I went to North Face at Ala Moana, bought a tent. Dumbest decision of my life. Because I was like, I don't want to use hotels that the displaced people will need. So I'm just going to sleep in Lahaina in a tent. So for 3 months afterwards, it was like lava pouring out of my nose. My ears burned because it was like after 9/11.
Nasty stuff, man.
Yeah, it was so stupid. So stupid. But I was there 72 hours after the fire, and I just set up a tent. I moved my tent eventually to the church by the Ritz. So I was camping out on the Ritz.
All the way up to Kapalua.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's where we moved to school. So we built a Catholic school with tents on the Mission Church. And the Ritz-Carlton, we built the school and provided all the curriculum and funded the teachers and everything. And then the Ritz provided the lunch for the first semester. So these kids were eating Ritz-Carlton meals for their school lunch.
Not bad, but still shitty situation.
A horrible situation, but we made the best of it.
Do you know the Felinos or the Comises?
Mm-mm.
That would be the people. I'm gonna make sure you get to know them. They're awesome.
Well, bro, let's do it. I haven't eaten yet. My assistant, we're gonna go get lunch.
I gotta grab some. I'm probably gonna wind up eating a turkey sandwich when I meet up with my friend on the course. Because I promised.
All right.
I
Turkey
promised him golf, and he lives all the way out in Ontario, and I never get to see him. I was like, oh, I'll go see you today.
That's a drive. Yeah.
So I gotta get.
All right, brother. We'll get to work. You gotta win.
I'll for this. I appreciate it.